Now, I want to talk about two women who I don't think are good role models for young girls whatsoever, and that's Alex Cooper from the Call Her Daddy podcast and Charlize Theron. Now, I understand Alex Cooper, she has started this business. She is a staunch businesswoman. That is great. But Alex Cooper has built a career on telling young girls, F men, you don't need men, be single, freeze your eggs, ladies, you don't need a man for anything. That is what she has told all of these young girls. Many in the audience tune in to watch her for that reason, right? Well, Alex Cooper, to me, she's phony because she got married. She wants to have kids. She's living in a house with a white picket fence and a dog. She's having that traditional nuclear family American dream, but she doesn't want any of the girls listening to her to catch up because if they find love and tradition and family, they're not going to be tuning in to the sex podcast, okay? Where they talk about every nook and cranny of their bodies. But that's who Alex Cooper is, and congratulations to her for getting hundreds of millions of dollars in this deal with SiriusXM. That's great. I'm happy for her and her contracts. But do I think she's the best role model for young women? No. Someone who went on her show and is going viral is none other than actress Charlize Theron. Now, we all know Charlize Theron from all of her movies. She's, I believe, won Oscars. She's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, she goes on the Call Her Daddy podcast to opine on love and relationships. Now, I don't know why anyone is looking to Charlize Theron for relationship advice. She's not married, has never been married, hasn't really had a lot of success with men, and she said some very interesting things on the podcast about love. I want to take a look at one of the clips, and then we'll discuss.
I do not miss love. You know, I might miss sex.
Fair. That's fair. You're like, but my vibrator is only doing so much.
Yeah, no, look, the vibrator is good. And I'm having the kind of sex I never had in my 20s or in my 30s.
Love.
Yes. And so that part has been really exciting. But I'm not missing a relationship. I'm not missing the partnership that I think people think you miss when you're me.
So Charlize Theron basically spends this entire podcast talking about how she doesn't need a man, she doesn't want a man in her house, and she also has two children. Now, she talks about how she's so happy she's a single parent because she doesn't want to make decisions with another man. She doesn't want any man in her house. She's not going to allow a man to move into her house while her kids are still living under her roof. Now, where things start to get interesting, Charlize Theron adopted a child, I believe from South Africa, where she is from. This child was named Jackson, and we were doing some research last night. So she adopted Jackson, who was a little boy. Jackson allegedly came to her at 3 years old and said, I feel like I'm a little girl. Charlize Theron said, well, okay, you are a little girl. Let me read you this quote. I thought she was a boy too, until she looked at me when she was 3 years old and said, I am not a boy. She now says she has two beautiful daughters. So Charlize Theron, there's no man in the house. She allowed her 3-year-old son she adopted from Africa to decide he was a girl and is now living as a girl. She's telling other young girls, you don't need a man. You should be single. Go out there and have sex. You don't need love. I don't miss love. F men. This is Charlize Theron, the role model to young girls. This is where the feminist movement has gotten you. And as someone who grew up living with my mom, right, there is no shame in growing up in a one-parent household. None at all. Shout out to all the moms and the single moms all across the country making it work every single day, putting that food on the table, taking care of their families. Thank you. We love you. We recognize you. But ideally, what's wrong with saying you want to have a man in the house? You want to have a two-parent household. There were times growing up where I would see other families, right, that had a two-parent household. I would think, oh my God, what would that be like to have two parents in the house? And oh my God, could you go to the dad when you have certain questions and go to the mom when you have others? And I don't think it's just a coincidence that her two children, I believe one of them is transgender. I don't think it's a coincidence. The little boy's turning into a girl. Charlize is, pushing the little single-digit child to turn into the opposite sex. She doesn't want a man in the house. She hates men. That has been transferred over onto the children, in my opinion. So I don't think Charlize Theron or Alex Cooper are these great role models for young girls, but this is the modern feminist movement, right? These are the girls who sit around watching MSNBC. They want to freeze their eggs. They say they don't need men. And of course, I'm all for the independent women. But I've spoken to so many girls about this the last few days as we were preparing for this episode, and they said, yes, we might want to have our careers and be independent if that's our choice, but we also want a man, okay? We would ideally love to raise our kids with another man in the house. We're not all F men, screw men. We're all here because a man and a woman got together at some point and made a baby. Okay, that is why we're all here. So this narrative this sort of 2015 girl boss feminism that Alex Cooper and Charlize Theron and a lot of these celebrities possess, it's so antiquated and outdated. I think it's much cooler now to say, you know what? I do want love. I do want to get married. I do want to have kids. I do want to have the nuclear family. But I believe the left, and I've said this for years, I think the left, and especially Hollywood, they want to erase the nuclear family and traditional values, faith, family, and everything that goes with it. They are not interested. So let's move on to Charlize Theron. So we found that she is turning 50 in August. So next month, she will turn 50. She goes on this podcast and she brags about sleeping with 26-year-olds and sleeping with all these young men and living this fabulous Hollywood lifestyle. I just don't think that's the best role model for young women. But this is who Alex Cooper chooses to have on her show. Alex Cooper has like Monica Lewinsky, Charlize Theron, all these women who probably aren't the best role models for young girls. Alex Cooper isn't having a mom on her show who's raising her kids and living that life every single day. She's not having someone with any traditional values on her show, but that is what Alex Cooper is doing. She does not want her audience to wise up and realize that she's living that dream. She has a husband, white picket fence, a dog. She's probably going to have a baby soon. She's having it all, but she doesn't want you to have it all because then you'll stop tuning into her, right? If you get yourself together and find a man and settle down, you're probably not going to tune in to Alex Cooper. And this also reminds me of another feminist whose career sort of crashed and burned, and that was Rachel Zegler from Snow White. Remember, Rachel Zegler was cast in Snow White and then spent 2 years on a press tour and a press run trashing the original IP of the film, saying, we don't need a man, you don't need to have a man. Well, guess what? Snow White flopped because some people, they want Prince Charming. They want to find a man. It doesn't make you less of a woman, or if all the gays out there, doesn't make you less of a gay if you want Prince Charming to come along and sweep you off your feet, okay? Is there something wrong in this culture that you're not allowed to say, you know what? I do want love. I do want that companionship. I do want to be with somebody. I don't want to end up like Charlize Theron at 50 years old saying, F men, screw men with my transgender child. That's not for me, and it's probably not for most of you. But Charlize, we wish you well. Alex Cooper, we wish you well with your sex podcast. Alex Cooper also, you know where her priorities lie because she got to interview Vice President Kamala Harris, and basically the only policy question she asked about was abortion. Abortion was the most important thing to her, right? Aborting babies was the most important thing to Alex Cooper. That's really all she wanted to know from Kamala Harris. Now, why would you even waste your time asking Kamala Harris about something that the Supreme Court decided, right? It's not changing anytime soon. The Dobbs decision that overturned Roe and sent it back to the states, if Alex Cooper actually knew anything about politics, she would have been interrogating Kamala Harris on the border, immigration, the fact that she was put in charge of the border, inflation, all of these serious issues. Instead, she's focused on, my girls need to get abortions. We need to get abortions. We don't want men. F men, we're going to be single forever, and we're all going to raise our transgender children and live happily ever after and run off into the sunset. That's basically what these women want, and it's why I don't listen to Call Her Daddy unless I'm inundated with these viral clips. So we wish you well, Alex Cooper. We wish you well, Charlize Theron. I'd love to hear from you guys also. What do you think about this brand of feminism, this sort of old school feminism from about 10, 15 years ago, where these girls say, we don't need a man, we don't want a man. They don't seem happy. Okay, the girls who say they hate men and they don't need men and they don't miss love, they don't seem that happy and they don't seem that healthy, and their households seem to be a mess.